Making the headlines this Thursday is the very latest lunchtime news.
Deepest concern from the King as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Police arrived at the Sandringham estate this morning and are currently searching addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. It comes after allegations the former prince shared confidential material with Jeffrey Epstein while he was trade envoy. The offence carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment.
It is a horrendous day for him that he has been arrested, but should he be prosecuted, I think a prison sentence is a very real possibility that can in no way, shape or form be discounted.
The former prince remains in custody this lunchtime. His brother, the King, has said the law must take its course. We'll get all the latest on this unprecedented arrest and what it means for the royal family. Also this lunchtime, we speak to the British couple imprisoned in Iran, now sentenced to 10 years in jail. Social media firms to have 48 hours to take down intimate images shared without consent or face being fined or blocked. And concerns over proposals to reform the legal right to support for children with special educational needs.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Charlotte Hawkins.
Good afternoon. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Police turned up at his Norfolk home and at another address in Berkshire first thing this morning. At this lunchtime, the former prince is in police custody. His brother, the King, said he'd learned of the situation with the deepest concern, but he insisted the full, fair and proper process would be followed by investigators. Andrew himself has consistently denied any wrongdoing. It nonetheless marks the most significant development since the release of millions of documents linked to Andrew's friend, the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, last month. In this programme, we'll get reaction from our royal editor, Chris Shipp, from our correspondent Neil Connery at the King's Estates in Sandringham, where Andrew's been staying, and from our US correspondent Dan Rivers in Washington, assessing the continued fallout of the Epstein files on both sides of the Atlantic. First, here's our correspondent, Sejal Karia.
Officers in plain clothes and unmarked police cars were the first clues of the seismic events unfolding inside. A royal residence at the centre of an extraordinary, unprecedented development this morning. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the King's brother, was being arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office and on his 66th birthday. In an exceptional statement, the King said, "I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. He said the authorities have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Let me state clearly," the statement went on, "the law must take its course." Also releasing a statement, the arresting police force, Thames Valley, who said, "We have today arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office and are carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. The man remains in police custody at this time. We will not be naming the arrested man as per national guidance."
In terms of the seriousness for Andrew in particular, obviously it is a horrendous day for him that he has been arrested, but should he be prosecuted, I think a prison sentence is a very real possibility that can in no way, shape or form be discounted.
It's been known detectives from Thames Valley Police have been investigating the fallout from the Epstein files in recent weeks, specifically Andrew's links to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Allegations linked to his decades spent working as a trade envoy for the British government, a role from which he resigned in 2011 following controversy. Recently unearthed emails appear to show the alleged sharing of confidential reports with Epstein. Andrew has previously strenuously denied any wrongdoing. Andrew's associations, long scrutinised, now under renewed focus. In recent weeks, pressure has been mounting not only on him, but on the rest of the royal family, with Prince William facing questions on a recent trip to Saudi Arabia.
To what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue?
And the king heckled during a royal walkabout.
Charles, how long have you known about Andrew and Epstein?
After which he'd expressed his profound concern over the allegations and said he was ready to support the police. Once a senior working royal at the heart of public life, alongside the king and his mother, Andrew has already been stripped of his royal titles and his home, Royal Lodge in Windsor. Today's arrest underscores just how far he has fallen from favour. From palace corridors to police custody, a gulf that underlines the scale of this moment. He's been arrested, not charged, and it does not mean guilt. But it marks a dramatic turn and raises profound questions for both Andrew and the monarchy. Sejal Karia, ITV News.
It was only this month that Andrew moved from his Windsor mansion to new accommodation on the King's private Sandringham estate. Let's get the very latest now from there and join our correspondent Neil Connery. Neil, what can you tell us from the scene?
Absolutely extraordinary development this morning. Let me just give you a sense of the geography here. Wood Farm is just up this track behind me here, about a quarter of a mile or so beyond those trees. That is where Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been for the last 2 weeks, and that is where officers led by Thames Valley Force and supported by Norfolk Police as well came this morning to make this arrest. We understand that evidence was gathered at the scene as well. There's speculation that Andrew was taken to King's Lynn Police Station. We don't know that at this stage, but wherever Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is being held, he would be treated like anybody else who has been arrested. In terms of the police, they have a duty of care, first of all, to check the individual's mental well-being and state. He also would be explained his rights in terms of legal representation. There would be a duty solicitor there as well. Perhaps in this case, he may choose, as is his right, his own legal representative, but they would have to be with him if he required that before any interview could take place. In terms of what he's been arrested on, that is on suspicion of misconduct in a public office. Now, that has been common law for a few hundred years. It is a very serious offence and carries with it the maximum life imprisonment. I think it's really important to stress, though, this morning, we are at the beginning of a process here. The Prime Minister and the Justice Secretary made it clear that no one is above the law, but the individuals are innocent, of course, until proven guilty. And I think it's important that people bear that in mind. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has consistently denied any wrongdoing in terms of his relationship and dealings with Jeffrey Epstein.
Neil, thanks very much for the latest from the scene. Well, it's thought neither the King nor Buckingham Palace was informed in advance of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's arrest. But in the last hour, the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, have said they back the King's statement that the law must take its course. Time to put all this to our royal editor, Chris Shipp. And Chris, there are so many questions in all of this, aren't there? But worth saying, this is unprecedented in modern times.
Yeah, if you want to talk about how unprecedented it is, the last time that a sibling of a monarch was arrested was 1544. That was when Elizabeth of York arrested her sister Mary. The last time a member of the royal family was arrested was King Charles I. In 1647, he later, as people know, went on to be executed. But that just lets you know how significant a moment this is. The younger brother of the king. And that statement from the king this morning, a lot of people have said, why haven't we heard from him? Why have we only had statements from Buckingham Palace, but not from him? This was signed Charles R. So it was a personal message from him talking of his deepest concern, but essentially saying, no one is above the law. That includes my brother, and let the police operate freely and fairly in the course of this investigation. So, I mean, in terms of the king, who's got some engagements this afternoon, by the way, I thought that statement was quite something this morning.
Absolutely, and we should also say there are separate inquiries underway, aren't there, by police across the UK?
Yes, so some of these are related to claims around Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. For example, Thames Valley Police, the force that actually made the arrest today on suspicion of misconduct in public office, have another review, not a criminal investigation, but another review going on into claims that a woman was trafficked to him for sex. The Metropolitan Police are having a look into what police protection officers did or didn't do when they were looking after members of the royal family. And then we've got various police forces that look after airports, for example, Essex Police for Stansted, Bedfordshire for Luton, West Midlands for Birmingham Airport, and they are looking into flights, private jets operated by Jeffrey Epstein at the time. So lots of inquiries going on at the moment, but as far as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is concerned, one criminal investigation, and that's the one he is currently being interviewed about right now. As you say, on his birthday, on his 66th birthday, he's in police custody.
Chris, thanks very much. Ever since American justice officials released millions of files from their Jeffrey Epstein probe, the documents have been being trawled through on both sides of the Atlantic. We can talk now to our US correspondent Dan Rivers in Washington. Dan, what's been the reaction there this morning?
Well, Charlotte, unsurprisingly, this is massive news here as well, leading all of the breakfast programmes this lunchtime in the UK. We've heard a statement from the family of Virginia Giuffre. Now, she was, of course, the main accuser of Prince Andrew. Important to stress, he always denied any involvement with her, ever having met her, in fact. But nevertheless, we've heard from Amanda and Sky Roberts today. They start their statement simply with two words, at last. They go on to say, today our broken hearts have been lifted at the news. No one is above the law, not even royalty. On behalf of our sister, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, we extend our gratitude to the UK's Thames Valley Police for their investigation and the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. For survivors everywhere, Virginia did this for you. Important to stress as well that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, nothing to do with the allegations of trafficking and sexual abuse. I've also talked this morning to another survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's, Rena O, who's following this closely. She said this is just the beginning and it opens a very big door, she told me. He is a commoner, she said, and is being treated as such. And we've also heard from the lawyer for Virginia Giuffre as well, Sigrid McCauley, who said this is a monumental moment. No one should be above the law. I think the final point, Charlotte, is this does draw a very stark parallel with what's going on in the UK, where we've got active police investigations, and here in the US, where no one has been arrested apart from Ghislaine Maxwell.
Dan, many thanks. Well, we'll get more with any updates from Chris Shipp before the end of the programme. And in the meantime, we have all the latest on our website. That's itv.com/news. But now let's turn to some of the day's other news. And a British couple imprisoned in Iran have told ITV News they want help from the UK government. Craig Foreman spoke to us from his detention before officials here confirmed overnight that he and his wife Lindsay have been jailed for 10 years. The Foreign Secretary has called their sentence for espionage charges, which they deny, totally unjustifiable. Our global security editor, Rohit Katru, reports.
Phone call to his family from the Foreign Office confirmed the severe sentence.
Devastating to begin with. I mean, it was a very...
Changes in support for children with special educational needs and disabilities are being planned under government reforms. They could alter the way so-called EHCPs are handled. That's Education, Health and Care Plans. Under the leaked proposals, these legal documents would be reassessed once children reach the end of primary school. That's already caused alarm amongst parents who say they have to fight for the right support for their children.
An EHCP setting out his legal rights to support, but Mum Jo is worried about proposed reforms which could erode his rights.
Getting rid of these EHCPs, that is like their protection. Like if Lucas didn't have an EHCP now, he would have probably been through about 6 schools, like expelled, just for behaviour, which he can't help.
The number of kids with EHCPs has ballooned, increasing by 166% since 2015 to more than 600,000. From 2030, children will have their needs reassessed at the age of 11. EHCPs will be reserved only for children with the most complex needs. while pupils with diagnoses of autism and ADHD are thought to be among those who could be moved to a new tiered system of support.
No changes will be done before 2030, but ultimately any changes are done with children at the heart of this to ensure that they get the right support and the right needs for them. Because, again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all policy here. The Secretary of State will be outlining the full package of reforms in due course.
The SEND white paper could come as soon as Monday, with a focus on making mainstream schools more inclusive. This Lincolnshire primary has seen demand rapidly increase.
It is really difficult meeting the needs of all these children with these complex needs. To get those external provisions that will help those children can be really frustrating because it's often time consuming getting that support.
While most agree the current system is broken, these reforms will be controversial, with intense debate on the way forward. Sarah Corker, ITV News.
The government will demand that tech companies remove abusive images from their platforms within 48 hours of them being flagged. That's part of a new law being introduced by the government. The measure will apply to any intimate images shared without consent. Our reporter Rosie Dowsing is in Westminster. And Rosie, the government claims the days of tech firms having a so-called free pass are over.
Yes, indeed they do, Charlotte, because the Prime Minister says the online world is now the front line when it comes to the battle against violence against women and girls. He's called revenge porn a national emergency. Revenge porn is where nude or intimate images are shared online without consent. It is illegal, but the government now wants it to be considered and treated in the same vein as terrorist content or child abuse images. So this new law, this amendment to the online safety bill, would mean that tech giants, social media companies have 48 hours to remove harmful content when it's been flagged or face the consequences such as fines or being blocked from the UK altogether. Of course, the government did take on Elon Musk and the AI chatbot. It's going a step further. This has been welcomed by campaigners, but the government says that it will leave no stone unturned when it comes to misogynistic abuse.
Rosie, thanks very much. A man has died and a teenage boy is in a critical condition after a double stabbing in Northampton. 7 people have been arrested in connection with the incident at Briar Hill Skate Park. Police have stepped up patrols in the area. Sir Keir Starmer has appointed Dame Antonio Romeo as Cabinet Secretary and Head of the Civil Service. She becomes the first woman to hold the UK's most senior civil service post. And pubs will be able to stay open until 2 a.m. if any of the home nations make it to the knockout stage of this summer's World Cup. England and Scotland have already qualified, with Northern Ireland and Wales set to try to join them. We return to our main story now, the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Our royal editor Chris Shipp is back with us. And Chris, this is just such a huge moment, isn't it, for the royal family?
Yeah, you can't overstate what an important moment this is. We spoke earlier about the sort of historic parallels, but remember there's only one person in this country who is above the law, and that's the monarch, because whenever you go to court, for example, it's the Crown versus an individual. Therefore, the King was very clear today, and he said in that statement, "Let me state clearly, the law must take its course." In other words, don't show any sympathy for my brother. The law must follow where the investigation leads. And that was the key part of a statement from him, which in itself was important because it was very personal. Now, the Queen we have seen this morning, Queen Camilla has been out and about today. Here she is. The King will also continue an engagement this afternoon. He said today, "My family and I will continue in our duty in our service to you all," before he signed off Charles R. Yes, they are going about their jobs as best they can. Much easier to do than it is to carry out in practice, and they're trying to continue as best they can.
I'll wait to see what happens with this. Chris, thanks very much for that update. And that is all from us for now. Charlene will have tonight's evening news live from Buckingham Palace. That's at 6:30. The news where you are is next. For everyone on the Lunchtime team, bye-bye.